Yes, guys, welcome back to SFeatleyTV. We're here for another episode of F1 Legends, and we're doing a different legend this time. It's not an F1 driver, or he was an F1 driver. I'd say an F1 driver, more like an F2 driver. Really didn't really succeed in F1. Succeeded bit more as a team owner for Formula One, but his main job we all know from was him being FIA president. And unfortunately, someone who's just passed away this week. He's just passed away on Sunday, and it's former FIA President Max Mosely, who's died at the age of 81 this week. A very a very controversial figure. A lot of people didn't really like him, to be honest, especially as an FIA president. But to be fair, if it weren't for him, we wouldn't have been able to get F1 to a scientifically safe level than it is now. Evening, not F1 related, but I've got cleaning gold. I'm sure you have, mate. I'm sure you have. I'll happily join your stream if you're available. If you want me on, mate, like the banter will be class. I've got to admit, the banter will be class. But yeah. So we're gonna get straight into it. So he was born on 13th April 1940, and had two kids. Was married from about 1960. That's sort of a background to his personal life. His family was well off, hence why they could probably afford to get in to Formula One. And his father was Sir Oswald Mosely, who was a member of Parliament for a long time, and he was Chancellor of Duchy of Lancaster. Wow, that's very well off. So he had the sort of background needed to get into Formula One. But we're not going to focus on the politics side. I don't want to focus on the politics side. I don't want to do that. Got enough politics in Formula One without focusing generally on that. I'm watching on BT Sport YouTube as Mrs. watches some crap downstairs. So if you can watch it on that, then you can join. I'll be watching on BT Sport. I'll be watching on my subscription. Let's put it that way. On my phone, so I'll be doing that. So I might be maybe a little bit behind that, but I'll definitely be in for that. And the probably most important thing is that you're ahead. But everyone, the Hot Off the Press show is last one of the season, so make sure we all tune into that. I'm going to actually send the link. Just press. You bloody thing is on it. That's it. What's going to send it? Anyway, sorry. We're going back to it. Hey, Stephen, RIP, Max Mosely. Absolutely. I could put the link in the chat. Please, if anyone does want to come on, do come on. If you do want to donate, please do it via the Just Giving page link. It goes straight to charity. 100% of it goes to the charity straight from there. But if you do want to support the channel, then obviously you can do it via the super chats or the seriously. Soon we will be doing memberships. I'm trying to work out what perks people want. If people can go to the community post page, I'll show you where it is on YouTube. Just before we continue this, community posts. I'm just going to quickly share this for you guys. There we go. So yeah, I've put here, look, what would you guys like as a perk if you signed up to any of our memberships that we're going to do in the future? Please leave your ideas in the comments below. So please do that now. Yeah, just leave your thoughts. What would you like to see? Would you like to, one of the ideas that I might be talking to the charity about is you spend about 3 months as a member. You basically pay the equivalent of a shirt. You get a shirt for free from the charity because we don't do our merchandise in that. If you're ahead of me, yeah, you won't be able to join, mate. I will not be ahead of you. Trust me. My one is shit. He is shit. So yeah, I won't be ahead of you. Trust me, I won't be ahead of you. If you're on BT Sport YouTube, so you won't be ahead of me. Anyway, let's go back to it. So yeah, his racing career didn't really last long. He was in the lower formulas for a long time, and he did over 40 races between 60 and 67. He won 12 and set several class lap records. In 1968, he formed a London Racing Team partnership with drivers Chris Lambert to compete in European Formula 2, which at the time was the level racing just below Formula 1. Their cars were prepared by Frank Williams, later an F1 team owner. It was a dangerous time to race. Mosley's first F2 race was the 1968 Dutchland Trophy, also known as the Martini Gold Cup at Hockenheim, in which double world champion Jim Clark was killed. And within 2 years, both Mosley's 1968 teammates Piers Courage and Chris Lambert were dead in racing accidents. Mosley's best result that year was an 8th place at a non-championship race in Monza, and engine builder Brian Hart said that as a driver, Mosely might not be particularly quick, but he was a thinking driver. He kept out of trouble and generally uses his head. But in the end, he just wasn't quick enough in the end. So in 1969, after the 2 large accidents due to breakage on his car, Mosley decided that if it was evident that I wasn't going to be world champion and retired from racing, he was already working with Robin Hurd, Alan Rees, Graham Coker to establish a racing car manufacturer known as March Engineering, and now he decided to become March Engineering as an F1 team, but more as just a manufacturer of F1 cars. So the name March came based on the initials of the founders, M. Mosely, linked like the other founders. Mosely put £2,500 in capital. That's nothing compared to today's Formula 1 standards. That's peanuts. And his father told him that the company would certainly go bankrupt, but it would be good training for something serious later on. Mosley played a key role publicising the new outfit, although March had few resources and limited experience, the firm announced ambitious plans to enter Formula One, the pinnacle of single-seater racing in 1970. The team initially intended to enter a singular car, but by the beginning of the season, partly due to Max Mosey, how he managed to get good deals for the team, the number of March cars entered into their Formula One race had risen to 5. So basically, what they've done is they've built the cars, sold them to the team owners, and because back then they could buy the F1 cars, and that way the team runs their car, but under their name. So, yes. So yeah. Just go check something. Right. Yeah. So where were we? Yeah. Two of these were run by obviously March's own house works team. Mostly negotiated sponsorship from tire from mark maker Firestone and oil additives manufacturer STP, which was quite a prominent sponsor in F1. The new operation was initially successful. In Formula One, March cars won 3 of the first 4 races for different teams. One of these was actually a world championship race. So you had F1 races, but some weren't actually in F1 championship. So they just did them to keep the circus going and that. So one of these was a world championship race, being the 1970 Spanish Grand Prix, and it's not at the Barcelona, the Circuit de Barcelona Catalunya, but it is now. It was back in where was it? It was Madrid. Circuito Permanente del Jarama, right? Which I don't know. Is that didn't it was all right. It looked like a decent track, to be honest. I wouldn't mind F1 cars racing it now. By the look at the layout, but it was won by reigning world champion Jackie Stewart in a customer car run by the famous Tyrrell Racing. Obviously, Jackie Stewart famous for his Tyrrell team. The organisation got into financial difficulty almost immediately. The Formula operation was costing more than the customer car business was making. This is what a lot of new teams struggled with, and this is what you struggle with in Formula One. It costs so much, and yeah, so obviously he was selling it to different teams, and trying to get different deals to keep the thing going. He was selling marches to other F1 teams such as Williams, the famous Penske team, which is still in IndyCar now. But the cars were rarely front runners. Although the Works team won a single race in both 1975 and 1976, by the end of 1977, Mosely became fed up of struggling to compete in Formula One with no resources and left to work for FOCA full time, selling the shares in the company to Hurd, but remaining as director. March's involvement in Formula One ended that same year. So after a brief stint, it all came to an end, like so many other teams before them. So 1969, Mosey was invited to represent March at the Grand Prix Constructors Association, or GPCA, which negotiated joint deals on behalf of its team members. Although March organisation was not popular with the established F1 teams, Mosley had said when they went along to meetings to discuss things such as prize money, they felt they ought to take me along because I was their lawyer. He was unimpressed with the standards of negotiations. Our side went in a group because no one trusted anyone else, and we were all afraid that someone would break ranks and make a private deal. So basically, they would go off and make their own deals for Formula One. In 1971, businessman Bernie Eccleston, who used to be Jochem's manager before he passed away, before he died at the Italian Grand Prix in 1970. Mosely recorded within about 20 minutes Eccleston turning up at the GPCA. It was apparent there was someone. There was someone who knew how many beans made 5, and after about half an hour, he moved round the table to me and sit next to me, and from then on, he and I started operating as a team. Within a very short time, the two of us were doing everything at GPCA instead of everyone moving around in a block, and from that developed FOCA, which is the Formula One Constructors. So basically, before it was the Grand Prix Constructors Association, then it became obviously F1 in its own way. And it was like, it had members like Colin Chapman for Lotus, Teddy Mayer. I don't know exactly what team he did. What did Teddy Mayer do? McLaren's McLaren, Teddy Mayer, Ken Tyrrell, Frank Williams. Obviously, Teddy Mayer taken over from Bruce McLaren after his death. The Goodwood Festival Speed, and so it did. This was all about how to sort of, because back in the day, like the amount of money the team, the organisers made was so much, and actually the teams were basically getting screwed, right, with how much they were making. So, hello, Miss Mel, how are you? Big up yourself. Rest in peace, Max Mosey. Absolutely. Do share that stream, please. Do hit that like button. Please do hit that like button right now. Hit right now. Please do that right now. So, smash that like button. Smash the like button, and do you have the fantasy league for the F1 in the description below. You also have what am I trying to say? I've lost what I'm trying to say. Shit. So you have the link below. You have you got certain ways of donating to the charity. So, and sharing the stream is the best thing you can do, and hit that like button as well. So, let me have a look. The FIA presidency, or FIA, or do you want to call him? Mosely returned to motorsport in 1986 with the support of Eccleston and Balestra to become president of the FIA's Manufacturers Commission. The success body to BPICA. With a seat on the FIA World Council, that same year he established Simtech Research, a racing technical consultancy firm with Nick Ruth, a former March employee. He sold his share of Simtech in 1981 when he elected president of FIA. According to Lovell, in 1987, he suggested to Balestra that he could deal with the problems with Eccleston by making him a member of the establishment. Later that year, Eccleston was appointed as vice president of the FIA with responsibilities for promotional affairs. With authority of F1, and other motorsports authorized by FIA, because they knew how good Eccleston was good with the promoters and with the organizers and the TV rights and everything, how to promote F1 to that level and put it out there for people. Back then, they didn't used to host all the races live, and it went until Hunt and Lauda where they wanted all the rights to the final race, and they went, shit, you ain't got the rights. Shit. And Eccleston said, you can have the rights, but what he did was he bought all the television rights for $1 million. That's what he did. Now, and every team, that's 10 teams, could have 10%. It's £100,000. Imagine all the testing they could do for £100,000 back in them days, which is a lot of money in them days. They all jumped on it. About 8 of them said, or 9 of them said yes. So that's how he got control of it, because then he had control of all the TV rights, and he could then go to these companies and, yeah, you can have the TV rights, but you must show every Grand Prix live. You must show it. So that's how now we have F1 live all the time. So, because back then it was just some of them were live, most of them were highlights. Yeah. In 1991, Mosely challenged Balestra for the presidency of FIA. Mosely said that his decision to change the Frenchman was prompted by Balestra's reported intervention on behalf of his countryman, Alain Prost, to ensure that the race stewards disqualified Brazilian driver Ayrton Senna from the 1989 Japanese Grand Prix. Do you know what? I fucking knew he was involved. He was involved. Now, for those who know F1, everyone knows what we're talking about. For those that don't, there was a massive war between, obviously, Alain Prost and Senna. Everyone knows that. If you don't know that as a fan of motorsport or any sort of fan, you must be living under a rock. And it came to a head in 1989. They had a race where, to carry it on to the last championship race, to keep the championship going, Ayrton Senna, who qualified on pole, needs to finish first. He needs to win. So if Alain Prost knows, if he doesn't finish, though, he wins the championship. So what happened was, he jumped him at the start, Prost. So Senna was following him all the way behind for most of the race. He got to about 46th lap down to the last chicane. Senna saw the opportunity, dived down the inside, and Alain Prost turned into him. I don't care what people say, he turned into him. Like, if you see the aerial footage, the angle he was going at, he was going to completely cut the fucking corner. The corner was nowhere near, you couldn't even see the curve on the inside before the corner. That's how early he was turning. He knew he was there, he was going to just turn into him. And now, obviously, you would expect there to be an investigation, and usually the FIA would punish Alain Prost. This is how great Alain Prost was using at the politics side of the sport. Ayrton Senna managed to get the car going, go down the escape road, which is escaping through, rejoining the circuit, and then carry on. So, repaired his front wing and won the race. So, meantime, Alain Prost has seen this, jumped to the FIA, knew the FIA president was French, Jean-Marie Balestra, and basically Mosely got involved to change the result. So they made sure Ayrton Senna was disqualified for some stupid fucking reason. Escape roads aren't escaping through. Apparently they're for stopping and turning around and going back out of. That's how they were putting it. Absolute bollocks. Absolute cock of bollocks. Especially when everyone else uses escape roads beforehand and they've been punished. So yeah. It's basically the fact that because Balestri, as a Frenchman, wanted him to win, he got involved to stop it happening. Big up, Talk Man, you. How are you? Sorry, I fell asleep. I'll speak to you after this. yeah, so obviously Mosely campaigned on the bias that Balestra, who was also president of the FIA and of the Federation Française du Sport Automobile, could not effectively manage all these roles together. He also said that no one challenged Balestra because they were afraid of the consequences, and suggested that the FIA president should not interfere with F1, which could be left to run itself. Mosely won the FIA presidency by 43 votes to 29. Balestra remained as president. Mosely resigned a year later, fulfilling a promise made during his election campaign to seek reaffirmation of his mandate. I wanted to show people that I do what I say. Now they can judge me in a year's time. FIA immediately re-elected him. In 1993, Mosely agreed with Balestra that the Frenchman would stand down as president of the FIA in Mosely's favour and returned for a new role of president of the FIA Senate to be created after Mosely's election. As well as the motorsport, FIA remit include the interests of motorists worldwide, an area Mosely wanted to involve himself. Now we get to the most important part here. He was obviously 1984. We had the deaths of Roman Ratzenberger and Ayrton Senna in the San Marino Grand Prix. Worldwide attention focused on the charismatic triple world champion Senna rather than Ratzenberger, a virtual unknown driving for a minor Simtech team. Mosely did not go to Senna's funeral, but attended that of Ratzenberger. In a press conference 10 years later, Mosely said, I went to his funeral because everyone went to Senna's. I thought it was important that somebody went to his. In the aftermath of the deaths and a number of other serious accidents, Mosely announced the formation of the Advisory Expert Group, chaired by Professor Sid Watkins. So basically, he created a group that would be headed by the man, the doctor of Formula One, and Sid Watkins. Will do one of him later, another episode of him, and looked at every aspect of the sport, the corners, the cars, every single aspect to see how we can make this safer for everyone. And he basically said, no expense spared. Make these cars as safe as you can. Stop deaths, basically. Came out with a policy of whatever is happening to a car, there should be no reason to die in a car. And this is not just because of Formula One. This is not just due to Formula One. It's for other it's not just it's for other formulas. It's for the actual road industry as well. So yeah, expert group chaired by Professor Watkins to research and improve safety in motor racing. Watkins, who learned from his new role by hearing Mosely announce it on the radio, has called it novel and revolutionary approach. The resulting changes included reducing the capacity of reducing the capacity and power of engines, the use of grooved tires to reduce cornering speeds, the introduction of the hands device to protect drivers' necks in accidents, circuit redesigns, and greatly increased requirements of crash testing of chassis. In 1995, a deal was signed between Eccleston and the FIA that passed all commercial rights to Formula One to him for 15 years on the condition that they would return to the FIA at the end of the period. Eccleston had been building up Formula One as a TV package since the early 90s, investing heavily in the new digital television technology. For the duration of the deal, the FIA would receive index-linked annual fixed royalty, estimated level at around 50%. Mosely said, my belief is that I got a better deal than anyone else could have. It was more because the hard line we had worked together so long for. Yeah, so, I mean, this whole thing was to be able to get them to make F1 safer. And in his second term in 1997, later that year, so later that year, the Commission Directorate General for Competition made a preliminary decision against Eccleston and the FIA, resulting in warning letters from Van Mert and to the FIA and Eccleston were leaked and ended the attempt to float F1. The FIA won a case against the Commission for a leak in 1998. We're going to move to about 2003, just move it on a bit. 2003, remember they decided to bring out what they call the European New Car Assessment Program. So they decided to take what they've developed in sort of crash testing and everything that for Formula One, use that for the general car industry. I think using Formula One to push NCAP crash testing is a European car safety program performance assessment program. That originated work done by the Transport Research Laboratory for the UK Department of Transport. The FIA became involved in the program in 1996, taking the lead in promoting it, and Mosely chaired the body to form the launches of the Euro NCAP 1997 to 2004. Despite NCAPs describing a strong negative response from car manufacturers at first, the NCAP had become the single most important mechanism for achieving advances in vehicle safety. So basically, what they've learned from FIA, they started from F1 and making it safer. They then managed to get it safe, like trying to make the car industry safer and safer. And they're still doing it to this day. So one of the two big controversies were which he was principal in, was 2005 United States Grand Prix. Now, for all you United States fans out there, you'll know what I'm talking about. Just gonna have a look on Twitter quickly. So just gonna also quickly, if you do want to jump on, please do hit that link in the description below. Do share the stream, please. Really does help if you do that. Really, really would help. Big time. Smash the like button. Get people to smash that like button. Just celebrating the life and contribution to such one of the legends of F1, who's only just passed away this week. So yeah, man, smash that like button. Just quickly find someone. I'm on. Right. So yeah, 2005 United States Grand Prix was an absolute disaster. Basically, what happened was in 2005 is that Michelin took tires that basically ended up too soft, and even the most durable ones wouldn't have worked anyway because they were having a unique advantage because they were more degradable, I say, than the Bridgestones. But um, they decided to try and go a step softer to give them an advantage. We gave them faster lap times overall, but the last corner, which was a banked corner, and the way the surface was a more cut surface, meant that the tyres weren't lasting around that last bend at 200 miles an hour. You're going around that bend that's banked at 200 miles an hour, and it's putting too much load and too much load, which meant the degrading of the tyre was catastrophic. Basically, after 12 laps, each Michelin tyres, which were run by 7 out of 10 teams, would have blown up and smashed cars smashing into the concrete barriers wrong alongside the track. Now, unfortunately, that's a safety issue. So, what could you do? You needed to slow the cars down. What they needed to do. So, yeah. So basically, United States Grand Prix was one of only six cars. Was one with only six cars of the Michelin tires used by the other 14 proved unsafe for the circuit. A proposal involving the addition of a temporary chicane to slow the cars for the fastest corner of the circuit was suggested by rejected by was suggested but rejected by Mosely. He stated his reasons for not agreeing to the chicane was Formula One is a dangerous activity and it would be unwise to make fundamental changes to a circuit which followed tried and tested procedures. What happened was bad but can be put right. This is not a true. This is not true of a fatality. He continued. Formula One is a sport which entertains. It is not entertainment disguised as sport. Mosley gave three possible solutions for Michelin runners: to use qualifying tyres, but change whenever necessary on safety grounds; to use a different tyre to be provided by Michelin to run, or to run at reduced speed. These were all rejected by Michelin shod teams. Paul Stoddart, the owner of Minardi, who ran Bridgestone tyres, was prepared to compromise to accommodate Michelin teams, even though a reduced field would guarantee his team much needed points, and was particularly vocal of his criticism and with calls for Mosley to resign over this. It was an absolute disaster, and a lot of people, were angry over it, and it was an absolute disaster. Mosley was elected unopposed for his fourth term in 2005. Recognition to his contribution to road safety and motorsport, Mosley was made Chevalier dans l'ordre de la Légion d'honneur. I don't know. He's basically the Legion of Honor, which is the highest decoration of outstanding achievements in military or civil life. Continuing film president in 2006, Mosley called the F1 Formula One match to develop technology relevant to road cars. In recent years, a large proportion of the enormous budget of F1 have been spent on development of very powerful, high-revving engines, which some say have little applicability. Have very little relevance to road cars. Sorry. Mosely announced a 10-year freeze on the development of engines to allow manufacturers to spend more on their budgets on environmentally friendly technology, such as kinetic energy recovery system, which was introduced in 2009. So obviously, again, in 2007, there's more. 2007 season was dominated by Ferrari's accusations of McLaren that he used illegal use of their intellectual property, leading to illegal cases in the United Kingdom and Italy. Unlike previous cases such as Toyota's teams, so just about using information they shouldn't have done. But I think 2009 was the big one as well. The last one was about the 2009 was about the Singapore Grand Prix. They found out during the first Singapore Grand Prix in 2008, we came under investigation in 2009 for fixing. Basically, what happened was because Alonso didn't qualify into Q3, and Nelson Piquet did. They used Nelson Piquet to basically what they did is they managed to work out a strategy where if Alonso came in first to pit, and then on a certain lap they used Nelson Piquet to deliberately spin the car and hit the wall, to bring the safety car out, and then it would also mean that the runners who were just about to stop would then have to pit whilst beyond safety car and take penalties, some of the front runners, and the rest have to wait and then make their pit stops just after. It meant that Alonso could jump the field and then eventually take the lead of the race and end up winning the race. So it was called as deliberate race fixing, the crash gate scandal, as they called it. And they found out Pat Simmons and Flavio Briatore were responsible. Flavio Briatore has been banned from F1 for life, which is a shame, being like a world champ, winning a team principal of a winning constructor like Benetton, with Michael Schumacher, and very charismatic, like a flamboyant man in the paddock. And Pat Simmons, who was banned for about 2-3 years, but then was brought back after about a year or two. And and then Nelson Piquet Jr., who was involved in the crash, he was given. He was allowed to race in F1 again, should anyone team want to employ him, if he was given evidence, if he gave evidence against them, against Pat Simmons and Flavio. Flavio said he wasn't involved. Pat Simmons says he wasn't involved. They all say it was each other's idea. But in the end, it's a shame because the Singapore Grand Prix, there was the first ever night race ever in Formula One, which was supposed to be a thing to celebrate, but it was disgusting how they did that. But again, people turn to Max Mosley, but what do you want him to do? You can't control these teams. Teams will constantly do that all the time. So but I mean, people like sometimes criticize a lot about the things that went wrong, or didn't go right, to the things that did go right, which is, the problem with 2005, 2009. I get your point about like he didn't help the situation, but 2000 and what am I trying to say? 2000 and all the way through his presidency, though, he made sure that F1 was a lot safer for everyone else, and you can't deny him of that. You can't deny him of what he's managed to do for the sport. F1 is so much safer now because of what he managed to do for the sport, which is make it like safe with the car industry, with crash tests. That group that now is permanently there trying to look for any improvements. I mean, like the last big crash that we had was Grosjean, and they immediately found 20 things that could improve on. So it's mad. You are big up on Monday. How are you? Just tuning in, broski. You are smashing it with the F1 content. It's if you know your stuff, then it's easy to know. I mean, I use sometimes Wikipedia just to remind me. I can't remember all of it, but it's just happening over time. I mean, the 1981 9 thing was, I knew that was ballistic. I always knew that was ballistic. Let's be honest, it's pretty plain to see. But yeah, people have a like moan it and like always criticize of like and doesn't really like him. I don't get it, but because the sport is now so much safer thanks to his involvement in in as a president of the FIA, and it all came from when he was a driver. And when he was a driver, he was asked about anyone that asked about being everyone that asked being that was asked that asked the FIA to make it safer. They said this is really very dangerous. Their quote was, "Well, this is back in the 60s. They said, well, if you think motor is dangerous, slow down a bit. Don't drive so fast. It's entirely up to you." Like, how can a sport that is a global sport like it is, and the pinnacle of motorsport, be run like that? It's not possible. So he said he would never, when in any of his life, he got to somewhere power in the sport, which is, I mean, the FIA is the biggest power you can have in Formula One. Um, he would make sure he would do something about it, and especially with the deaths of Prost and with the deaths of Senna and Ratzenberger in Imola just after he got elected, that really sort of gave everyone a focus to say, let's look at this and take this to another level on safety and make it really, really safe. Now they say, and I still say this now, despite the incidents we've had afterwards, F1, if you're going to see an accident in F1, whether you're a spectator, a marshal, one of the paddock, or driver, the best place to be in when you're surrounded near an accident in F1 is actually in the car itself, because it's like a shell. It's an impregnable shell. The monocoque is, and if you tune into Formula One's F1's Perfect Formula, which I believe is Saturday, isn't it? It's Saturday or something. We're going on about the MP41, which was the first monocoque chassis, which gave basically a driver survival shell that to protect the driver around, but unfortunately, it wasn't as safe as it is now. So, but now him plus with so many others have helped have made sort of F1 sort of always striving to make improvements in safety wherever they can, as well as making it fast and entertaining and the sport we all want to see. So, but yeah, if no one's going to come on, I'm going to wrap it up there. If no one's got any questions, so yeah, please do smash that like button. Sorry, it's been going for a while, but yes, there's a lot to talk about on Max Mosely, and it's just such a shame he's passed away this week. And thoughts and prayers go out to his family and closest friends. I think it was Bernie Eccleston who broke the news to Andrew Benson on BBC. So yeah, man, it's bad. It's not nice, but I'm sure there's going to be tributes from F1 all over the place. In the end, just the life that made a difference in the sport. So yeah, but we'll be back with another episode next week. Tomorrow on 6 p.m. we will be doing the Hot Off the Press show. So make sure you tune into that. Should have as many guests as we can. All about can Man City become not just kings of England but kings of Europe. So we'll wait and see. But wait and see until Saturday on that one. But until then, everyone stay safe, stay well, and don't forget there's the Europa League final. But we will not be doing Europa League final watch along here. Dugout Daily, Charlie Hibberts, who comes on here regularly as a panelist. He's a regular panelist here. Dugout Daily, he will be doing the watch along on his channel, right? So make sure you tune into that, right? Make sure you go and support him and you go and give him a subscribe. And yeah, so until then, everyone stay safe, stay well, and we'll see you guys very soon. Bye bye.